Is the Emperor of Japan actually a pope? Is he a pope, for want of a better word? I'm going to explain what I mean. But this is our December video for our monthly videos. I'm working alongside the Shogunate, Sengoku Studies and Tadagenji Traditions of the Samurai. And you can go visit them, but this isn't a playlist, so make sure you go back. This is our final video, or my final video for the year. We've done 12 months. I'm gonna, and the end of this playlist, by the end of the year, by January, I'll have a wonderful roundup for you. So don't go away, it's all there. We'll be doing more next year, I hope, if these guys want to. Now, what do I mean by is the Emperor of Japan a pope? So when we say the Emperor of Japan, that's not the Japanese name for him. He's more, the translation would be closer to the son of heaven, really, or like, descendant of heaven. And the Emperor of Japan is actually meant to be a direct descendant of the Japanese gods who created Japan and all that. And the sort of the gods, those gods that created Japan and did the sword and the spear and the dipping and all that sort of stuff. Though that family unit, they're meant to be descended from that thread. And that is why you can't oust the emperor. You can marry into his family, but you can't oust him, because you can't say, well, I'm also a descendant of them. You have to be of their line to become an emperor of Japan. But this becomes tricky because it becomes a translation issue. Now, the Pope, the Catholic Pope, is actually a figurehead. He is the Peter. He is the stone where we get the word petrify. Peter, the stone which the rock of the foundation of the faith is built on. And it comes from one of the disciples who was the man after Christ, wasn't it? I think St. Peter, of course, but the first pope. But the point being here is that, take away the religious aspect, the Pope also has a military, they have a military faction, or military power, or political power, which is usually enforced by the military, to act in the real world. So the Japanese emperor actually has lots of religious responsibilities. He's a religious power. He is the spokesperson of God on earth, like a pope. And his job is to sort of like make sure Japan is okay spiritually. And he runs the military court. Now, the military court, who got close to the emperor, where the samurai were the servants and the bushi were the warriors, that became problematic because they wanted to be more like the emperor, so they became a little bit softer, a little bit more poetic, nice, writing poems, having cherry blossoms. So in the end, the samurai were like, well, I'll tell you what, we'll do the heavy duty work and we'll take over. So what you have is the Pope, who runs political power. He has political influence, and he has a military section, basically, the military arm of Catholicism, and then you get the Knights Templar and all that was a military side of the Catholic Church, because remember, Protestantism didn't come till much later, so for a long time you have a military section running under a religious leader. So it's the same in Japan. You've got a religious leader who runs the military section. So we call him the emperor, but is he more closer to being a pope? Because what happens is, when we say the Emperor of Japan, everybody automatically goes, oh, emperor, okay, you get, from the West we have figures of a German emperor with medals and he's running the military. His actual job is more akin to head priest of Japan. He's the head priest of Japan, basically, and but then again it starts to get a little bit crazy, because the kings and queens of England are there by divine right. They are God's representative. Which brings us also to the Chinese, which is those who have the mandate of heaven. Heaven is beside them. So the difference between the Chinese and Japanese culture is the emperor of China can be ousted and you can replace him with someone else who has the mandate of heaven. Heaven has protected them. Whereas the Japanese, you can't have the mandate of heaven. You've got to just support someone who's from the imperial family, who is the next in power. So you could say that that member of the imperial family has the mandate of heaven. You could also say, like, the same for England. The Plantagenets for their time had the mandate of heaven, or then now the Windsors have the mandate of heaven, or the Tudors have the mandate of heaven. So, but they are put there by God. The difference is, well, then it gets really complicated, is that English kings and queens still to this day, technically, or whatever, we can think of a different word to say in that situation, are connected to Odin, and they come from the Anglo-Saxon kings. So our kings descend from the Anglo-Saxon kings, not by blood, but by right of heaven, mandate of heaven, all the way back to Odin, from the Anglo-Saxon times, when the Anglo-Saxon kings, before Christianity, said, we're from Odin. And even when Christianity came, they said, well, we still have, we're still from Odin. And that has turned into, we are from the gods gave us. So English kings and queens should technically have their power derived by Odin, but through the Christian God, and have a legitimate military power to hold that mandate of heaven. The Chinese have the same, they've got a mandate of heaven. The Japanese have a priest, head priest, and who can only be supported politically by whichever faction is more important. So that's when you start to get regents and shoguns. So the shogun is the person who is meant to look after the power for the legitimate emperor. That's what the shogunate is, not Nick, the other shogunate. So this is why it becomes problematic. Is the emperor a pope or an emperor of Japan? What do you think? Or is he something in the middle? I tend to favour he's a pope, because he is a religious leader who is the figure of an entire section of humanity, and he has power or sway, or should technically have power or sway, over the military arm. This is the same with the shogun. But the problem is the shogun was then overtaken by the regent, Kampaku, things like that, where you get like Toyotomi Hideyoshi, who came from nowhere. He's not the shogun, he can't be the shogun, but he still runs Japan. And then you get, we're going back to the shogun. So it goes emperor, shogun, regent, shogun, emperor. Right, Japanese history in a nutshell, okay? And the emperor today is still the emperor, but he's really got very limited or slim political power. So is he just the pope? Like today, the pope now has very limited military power, whereas once upon a time he could call on the kings and queens of Europe. Do you know what I mean? He was like, imagine you're the Pope and you say, right, we're off to the Middle East and we're off to take Jerusalem. Off we go, boys. And you have 300 years of crusade. That's the political power the Pope used to have. Whereas the Emperor used to say, right, I'm giving you this special notice. You are the shogun. Off you go. Hordes of armies used to go out and murder and destroy things. There you go. So that is what you have to remember about the Japanese emperor. This, of course, is in our playlist for Japanese history in 2023. Hopefully, if the guys still want to do it, we'll be doing Japanese history in 2024, which will be good. But beyond that, guys, please get yourself a copy of Book of Ninja, Tolkien, Book of Bushido. You can go for Art of War, you can go for I Ching or Yin Yang. If you get yourself a copy, put a review up for me on Amazon. Everything's good. That really helps. That keeps everything tickety-boo and ticking over. Right. That is our final video for this year. I'm hoping Stephen, Nick and Scott from Sengoku Studios will be doing another video. But beyond that, I'll wait until to see if they're doing one. And I'll do a roundup video for us at the end of the year.